Welcome to Inspired to Move, presented by Degree. I'm Ros Gold-Onwude, and today I am here with Talkspace Co-Founder and Head of Clinical Services, Roni Frank. What's up, Roni? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm well, thank you for asking. How are you today?
I'm pretty well.
Yeah, I think that's part of this new time we're in where people are tapped in with how do we feel? How are we doing? And I think that's why it makes you such a wonderful guest for today's episode in starting Talkspace. Now, I love a good origin story. Before you actually created Talkspace, you were a software developer. So, how do you make the move and transition from software development to a world of digital therapy and mental health tools?
This is a good question. I was 29 years old when my husband and I went through a crisis in our relationship. It was very difficult for both of us and very painful. Our marriage was falling apart and we were on the verge of divorce. But we wanted to make sure we tried everything before giving up on our relationship and on each other. So we decided to give it a last shot in couple therapy. This was when we were both introduced to therapy for the first time about 15 years ago. In couple therapy, we learned to communicate better with each other, to be better listeners, to stop judging each other and be more empathetic. And eventually, couple therapy saved our marriage. It allowed us to become better partners. And we were lucky to have access to therapy, to be able to afford it and allow ourselves better lives and a better future. Unlike most Americans, tens of millions of people in the US do not have access to mental health care. And Oren and I wanted to fix it because we thought this is a disgrace, because we knew that it had such a huge impact on our lives. And we believe that this experience that we had, the experience to get professional help at times of crisis, should be available for every person in need. Mental health care is a right, not a privilege. And this is how the vision of the company was born.
Well, thank you for sharing so much of your own personal journey. And I'm glad that you and Arden are doing so much better and sharing the gift of therapy now with everyone. So I guess quite simply, what exactly is Talkspace and how does it work?
So let's look at the numbers. 1 in 4 Americans are diagnosed with a mental health issue each year, usually depression or anxiety. However, most people cannot access mental health services because it's too expensive, because it's complicated to get help, it's not convenient, and because many people are ashamed due to stigma. So millions of Americans are suffering for years without the ability to receive professional help that they need and deserve. As a result, their conditions are getting worse and worse. Their quality of life is deteriorating to the point it may be irreversible. Talkspace is a platform that connects users with licensed therapists and psychiatrists via messaging and or live video chats anytime, anywhere. It's affordable, convenient, and simple, and you get help exactly when you need it.
So how would a virtual appointment with a therapist, perhaps through text or video messaging or video conference calling, how would that compare to an in-person session or service?
So at Talkspace, you are communicating with your therapist 5 days a week. As I said, usually via text message. You can also send a video message or audio message. You are communicating with the therapist on a daily basis, 5 days a week, usually up to 3 times a day. And on top of it, you can schedule live video sessions. So basically, the therapist is really part of your life, and you can communicate about your issues when they happen, when you really need help. You don't need to wait a week or few weeks for the next available appointment. So you are working on your issues in real time. And this, of course, enhances the outcomes of the treatment.
Roni, we often think about mental health as something that just like lives only in our heads, but I'm curious about how proper attention to mental health can inspire people to move physically. Roni, what is your thoughts on the relationship between mental and physical health?
So mental and emotional health refers to how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. It includes, among other things, the way we feel about ourselves, our ability to deal with difficulties and challenges, and the choices we make. Mental health plays a major role in the quality of our relationships, our families, our work, our productivity, and last but not least, our ability to maintain good physical health. There is no health without mental health. Stress, anxiety, depression take a huge toll on our body and weaken our immune system, leaving us more vulnerable to physical illnesses and damaging our overall health and well-being. So I believe it's pretty obvious why it's so important to be mentally and emotionally healthy, and why the Talkspace's mission is critical for individuals, for communities, and of course for our society.
Definitely. And I could definitely see all of the practical applications for athletes or people who want to get out and move and be healthy in every way possible. Um, Mental health is being discussed more and more in the sports world, even as an important tool to unleashing your peak performance. Now, I know that Talkspace has some really high profile partnerships, and one of them is with Michael Phelps, who has done such a great job of normalizing the conversation around mental health. I want to ask you how the relationship between Michael Phelps and Talkspace works, and what he's meant to this whole industry.
So you're right. In the last few years, there is a cultural shift in our society. Millennials are more open about their struggles. We see more and more awareness all over the media about the mental health crisis in this country and, in fact, all over the world. We also see more and more celebs coming out with their mental health issues. Talkspace has partnered with Michael Phelps about 3 years ago. Michael Phelps is doing incredible work with breaking the stigma and normalizing mental health. To hear the biggest athlete of all time share his struggles with depression and anxiety is so empowering, and makes anyone feel that it's okay not to be okay, that it's normal and nothing to be ashamed of. Since we launched this partnership, we have seen a significant decrease in stigma, and our community shares how inspiring it is for them to hear Michael Phelps' story, and that it allowed many of them to take action and take care of themselves. So we are very grateful for this partnership and for Michael Phelps' courage to share his story.
A worldwide pandemic, COVID-19, Roni, it forced everyone to stay at home, and people have reported dealing with isolation, anxiety, depression. It put a lot of pressure on our healthcare systems and our healthcare workers. And, I know that you and Talkspace have done a lot. Like, how has Talkspace stepped up to meet this unique moment in time in our history?
So about 7 months ago, we all started dealing with this devastating global pandemic. Since then, as you mentioned, anxiety and depression have heightened even more. We are anxious about our health. We're anxious about losing our job. Many of us have already lost their jobs due to the massive economic crisis, and this is very, very challenging. We're also dealing with isolation and loneliness. We're dealing with social injustice and racism. Relationships under quarantine is a huge stressor for couples. kids at home, online school, all so challenging. And then on top of it, a lot of people are just grieving the loss of normalcy, the loss of freedom, the loss of joy. So with this level of crisis, the mission of Talkspace is more important than ever. As the leader of the space, we are doubling down on our mission, and we are offering additional free mental health resources. First, we have launched a donation program around March to offer free services to healthcare workers on the front lines, doctors, nurses, social workers who are fighting this crisis on the front lines. We have donated about 2,500 months of free therapy for those medical workers across the country as they desperately need emotional support. We're also offering free support groups on Facebook led by Talkspace therapists who are sharing with Facebook users guidance, tips, advice about how to manage the anxiety, the isolation, the uncertainty we're all dealing with nowadays. We already have over 5,000 members in those groups, and it's growing very quickly. Last but not least, we have also launched a 16-day Corona anxiety program in which Talkspace members learn new techniques to reduce stress and anxiety at home. And of course, we're offering discounts on this program as well as all of our plans. I believe that this global pandemic is a wake-up call for all of us, that we are all vulnerable and that we need to come together and support one another. Everyone needs to do their part. Only with kindness and help and support, we as a society will be able to get to the other side.
I couldn't agree more. Roni, listening to you, I feel seen. I've never felt more vulnerable than I do right now during COVID-19. And I'm sure there are many others feeling this as well, and which I imagine the fact that we are now all at home, stuck with our feelings, and you provide a service that is, digital therapy, mental health tools. You don't have to be in person to use it. I imagine this is, from a business standpoint, created an opportunity to seize for Talkspace. First of all, how many people are using Talkspace? How has demand, I imagine, increased? And how does Talkspace take advantage of this, optimize their abilities as a company with people needing more of what you provide?
So Talkspace has served over 2 million people to date. You're right, COVID-19 is a game changer for the telehealth industry. The pandemic caused a dramatic increase in mental health issues, and at the same time, traditional services are not accessible anymore due to quarantine, social distancing. So those two factors together put a lot of stress on a system that was already broken. And this new level of crisis exposed even more the weaknesses of traditional mental health services. And that created an unprecedented mental health crisis in the country. As a result, consumers as well as providers started looking for remote care solutions. And as people are turning to remote care solutions such as Talkspace, they are experiencing the advantages, the benefits of digital mental health platforms. They see that not only is it safe, but it's also way more affordable, more convenient, and at the same time, they're receiving high quality care. They realize that those services actually may be better for them than traditional services for a variety of reasons, and there is no real disadvantage. So it would make no sense for people to go back to expensive, inconvenient traditional services. And that's why this is a game changer for telehealth. It's such a dramatic event that it's forcing consumers to change their behavior, and that leads to accelerating the adoption of remote care.
Roni, I always like to end with a look towards the future. What do you predict or see as the future for digital mental health therapy and tools, and companies like Talkspace, as that inspires our everyday life for the future?
So machine learning and artificial intelligence are revolutionizing mental health care, also just the whole healthcare industry. There's no doubt about it. AI technologies in healthcare are focused on improving treatment outcomes and reducing costs. We have large volumes of data on our platform. So with predictive analytics, we're able to build machine learning and AI tools that are helping our providers in many ways. Number one, better diagnosis in making more accurate diagnoses and also faster diagnoses. Number two, better treatment plan, predicting and suggesting more effective treatment plans. We're able to analyze the relationship between a specific therapist intervention and client outcome for a specific client with specific condition and symptoms. And so with machine learning, we can offer predictions regarding the most effective intervention. Number three, better engagement. Deliver better patient engagement. Again, based on our data and machine learning, we know what is the most effective engagement for a specific client. And when I say engagement, I mean use of specific language, text message versus audio or video, how many messages a day, how many messages a week, what are the best times, etc., etc. Efficiency. Last but not least, increase efficiency by transferring administrative tasks to machines. This would allow healthcare professionals to spend more time with their patients and focus on their care. AI and machine learning applications are not going to replace human professionals, but they're going to empower them to make smarter decisions so they can make a decision based on their experience, intuition, knowledge, and based data-driven prediction models. And based on all of these, they are able to provide higher quality of care and improve clinical outcomes for our clients.
Incredible. Roni Frank, thank you so much for joining us today on Inspired to Move, presented by Degree. It was fascinating to learn more about Talkspace and all it can provide for our society and what you project for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.